Rekkles without having to use all 3 bans on it. They can maybe even get Tristana or Xayah themselves for nuclear and try and get a better 2v2 lane matchup down the bottom lane where you do not get completely dumpstered, which of course is not a good thing.
And it's hard for H2K because there's so many 2v2 matchups that they have suffered in.
I feel like Fnatic right now already setting up for, we're going to give you Tristana, we're going to answer with the Sivir, and then we're going to pick a favorable support matchup so that we'll do fine in terms of the 2 versus 2 by already banning away the Alistar. And H2K, they're just following on these top lane bans.
Fnatic have not banned the Kalista yet. If there is a team who would leave it open, it would be Fnatic to try and challenge nuclear. See, ooh, do you want to play Kalista against Jesiz and Rekkles down the bottom lane and give like a Tristana or Xayah?
Wow.
And that feels like one of the biggest disrespect things you can do in pick ban. It's like, hey, take the Kalista. I don't care. I'm going to beat you anyway. That champion is so strong. I mean, we haven't gotten to see her played. I feel
100% banned in Europe.
It's been crazy that we haven't seen her once, but Tristana is off the board.
This should mean the Kalista ban then for Fnatic and a Xayah first pick, probably for nuclear to make sure Jesiz doesn't play it. I think with Tristana gone, taking a gamble of trading Kalista for Tristana is maybe not too smart for Fnatic, and they seem to agree as well. So Xayah is what I'm expecting here, just because if you give it over to Rekkles, you end up in that same situation where you can't win the 2v2 lane and it's bad.
And I'm curious, if we're not going to have quite as dominant on the bottom side from Fnatic, if they come into an even game, who are the members that really need to perform if they want to keep finding these wins against H2K?
I'm looking at Caps in the middle lane. He had a fantastic Aurelion Sol game in game 1. It's not been banned away like we saw in the G2 semi-final series in spring, but he did have a lot of side lanes to allow him to set up for success, and we will see the Civic coming out from the side of Rekkles.
Most likely the Sejuani again for Jankos then, and then we gotta see if they want to go for support pick here, or if they want to take their mid laner. Cassiopeia is open. Febiven can lock it in.
That's a very good point. I feel like they should just insta-lock that bad boy.
Otherwise, Fnatic can take it for Capsy and then ban away 2 champions that Febiven would like to play against the Cassiopeia.
The only thing I was thinking of is that they might let it through. They might give them the Cassio and then pick the Syndra themselves as and then just look to try and camp mid with the Gragas and Syndra combo.
Interesting. Trundle going to be locked in here. Was banned out in the previous game in the second ban phase. H2K putting a lot of priority on that pick.
Gonna be able to flex it. I think one of the problems H2K had in the last draft was they didn't have an answer in their mind to Cho'Gath, so they felt forced to take it in the first phase here, in the second phase of the pick and ban phase, meaning Odoamne did not get a counter pick, and that was because Gnar and Trundle were both banned, which seems to be the 2 answers from Odoamne's side. By taking this flex pick Trundle, you do set yourself up for that situation where you can actually just put the Trundle top in case a Cho'Gath does show up from sOAZ.
And I think they're a little hesitant to pick something like a Renekton, because usually you want to try and get a lot of advantages in that lane, and when you're picking a Sejuani, it becomes a little difficult to try and snowball, along with playing something like an Aurelion Sol that's going to try and roam to the top side as well.
And Morgana is locked in with this Sivir. This makes me very, very happy, because I think that Black Shield just helps Sivir so much in the laning phase to avoid these all-in engages that can happen, like the ones we saw in the last game. Fnatic also now needs to figure out if they want to take that Cassiopeia blind. Banning away the Lucian does not necessarily do too much against Febiven. I think there's still so many good mid lane picks like Orianna as well.
Just to add on to the Morgana as well, it naturally does quite well into the Trundle too, largely because what Trundle's really good at with the pillar is locking down low mobility AD carries that don't have escapes, but the Black Shield stops the slow, so it allows you to escape when you get caught off guard by that obnoxious obstruction.
And now we look at the bans coming out. LeBlanc, Lucian, mid lane focus once again. Last time Fnatic threw a curveball. This time H2K know what's in their back pocket. Corki now banned as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking blind pick Orianna here, especially with the Lucian ban. And then save last pick for sOAZ in the top lane so you know where this Trundle is going. On the side of H2K, they could also just take the Aurelion Sol again, but I think the Orianna is a safer blind pick. Cassiopeia is still also available, and it was such a huge pick yesterday.
I feel like Cassio would be good here. Perhaps they're a little bit worried with the amount of hard crowd control that they have, because what we saw yesterday was Miasma stacked with hard CC is really effective. So maybe they're just looking for a little bit more lane presence in the middle lane.
We have to remember the one player who was not successful on Cassiopeia during the playoffs was actually Caps, because Fnatic do not play around that mid lane very often. And he very clearly sends a message here that he values other mid laners above it. Cassiopeia should just come in here for H2K side against the Syndra. We've seen that matchup time and time again, and Febiven did fine in the laning phase when he played it against Exile.
Very well, in fact. Champion at 100% win rate once again yesterday's series. Cap's gonna hope he can do better on the Syndra this time around. Has been an incredibly good champion for Caps. We do have to acknowledge that, but Cassio looked to be the stronger champion overall in yesterday's series.
Looks like they're just going to go for a safe sort of top laner in the form of a Maokai. Fnatic, they have a few options. They could go for the Cho'Gath, does fine into the Maokai, or they could go for something a little more aggressive in the Renekton if they wanted to.
Would they play Rumble for sOAZ?
They could do, they could do.
There's a lot of magic damage.
Yeah, I'd also be concerned with the engage coming out from Fnatic. You do have the Gragas, but there's no really good follow-up CC to facilitate that. So I think I'd prefer something like a Cho, just to add that extra bit of utility. You've got plenty of damage with the Sivir and Syndra, and then you have a Morgana jumping in ulti too. Like, I think there's enough damage there.
The safer option, sOAZ seems to agree as well, locking in that Cho'Gath for himself. And you got the classic comp with the two tanks in the front and two carries right behind in Sivir Syndra from Fnatic's side. But I think the Maokai pick here is very good for Odoamne, and I think H2K's draft overall is very, very solid, especially when you look at the top side of the map with Maokai, Sejuani, and Cassiopeia. As long as they do not fall behind in the early game, we know how deadly they are in team fights.
And I really want to see what Odoamne can do here, because he was crushed in the early laning phase as the Cho'Gath into the Maokai matchup. Now that was courtesy of the Aurelion Sol coming to his lane, but I'm hoping now, without the crazy roaming mid laners, that we can see a stronger performance from Odoamne, as he was so often the key to H2K's success yesterday.
As much as I'd like to see that on a Maokai, it's harder to be that same level of playmaker as opposed to something like a Jarvan would be. But you're right. What we'd very much like to see from him is not falling behind so much. And to be fair to him, it was difficult against an Aurelion Sol, against that kind of pressure. He did end up struggling. But now I think that there will be a lot of focus in the middle lane. I really want to see Broxah helping Caps out with the Syndra Gragas combo. You have so much great setup with the Syndra, with the easy land of the stun, especially onto a Cassio, who can't even build boots in the early game. It's a great lane to really just put a lot of early focus into.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be briefly delayed going into game. No major issues here, just a couple extra minutes. So in the meantime, we have a chance to talk about the composition, to talk more about what we're looking to see from the teams. And we talked about how Caps doesn't always get a lot of attention in the mid lane. And I want to know if that's going to change, because he has the Syndra now. I want to see what he can do in this game, because it was Aurelion Sol all on his own last game that built a lot of those leads.
The one champion where Fnatic liked to play around mid lane was in fact with Syndra, because it's so easy to set up ganks. And as you highlighted before, trying to shut down a Cassiopeia, like, typically people look at it and say, okay, when she has Catalyst and a bit of magic resistance, well, there you go. Like, Gragas, Syndra, you might even get 1v2'd if you miss one of your engages, and then suddenly that's a tough one.
A Perks did.
Kind of like we've seen before. So if you can actually, around level 6, where the burst is so impactful, and there's such a squishy champion in Cassiopeia, that's where you really want to shine. But it's up to Broxah to join Caps in the mid lane. They do not need to help bot lane. It's a double range matchup versus a Trundle. That should be fine for Fnatic to just go even in that lane, potentially even get push priority. Mid lane should be the focus for this Gragas.
For context on the issue, won't be much of a further delay. Had to remake the lobby for some back-end features to work. Those will be up and functioning. We'll get all the goodies that you love so much, but it does put us back a minute. Now, we bring up the bottom lane. Game 1, the bottom lane was kind of this massive source of advantage. Nuclear
yeah, it was pretty big.
Yeah. Nuclear got crushed, and now I feel like this game is going to show us something different from Fnatic, because it has to. Because I want to say no way that a Morgana Sivir are going to find any kind of crazy 2v2 kills.
It's It's difficult to say. It is very difficult because if the Trundle just suddenly runs up to the Sivir and is just blindly auto-ing, and then the Sivir hits back, and then all of a sudden as he tries to escape and Morgana binding lands, yeah, he dies. But you have to play really badly in order to give away your life. I think the bottom lane will be much more standard. I'm expecting it to be a safe, just trading back and forth. Rekkles and Jesiz should, in theory, have the push. But the thing you've always got to remember about Xayah is normally that you take a point in your Q first, then you go E and then W. And once you've got all three abilities, it's super easy to stack the passive feathers, and you just throw them through the minion wave. You max your E, and once you pull the feathers back, you actually just clear out the wave extremely quickly. So both AD carries will have a fair amount of wave clear. It's very much dependent on whether or not the Morgana, Jesiz, decides to put any points in his W, which typically you don't normally do.
He did it once.
He did once.
It was horrible. It was terrible. I cried when I went to bed that night.
The base damage on that ability, it became god-awful.
No, it was just terrible. He luckily didn't do it in the third place game, so we have accepted him as
So if you're wondering why they were so successful, it's actually not taking a point in Tormented Soil. 100% the reason Fnatic were able to
Don't go Thunderlords either. You don't need it. It's all about just getting that Ardent Sensor for your AD carry. Click Black Shield, you've done your job. You can be very proud of yourself suddenly.
Ardent Sensor, one of those items that I like to see right now because Sivir, we talk about how many items she needs to be successful, but with Ardent Sensor in the meta, I feel like she can go for the Infinity Edge, along with the Essence Reaver, one attack speed item, and then still be that crazy threat.
I mean, it's also important to highlight the fact that she gets attack speed when she uses her W automatically from her ulti. She also has an auto reset on that, so you actually don't need to stack that much attack speed to still fire fairly quickly and get a lot of big hits through the entire team. Another thing that we should mention is the fact that up in the top lane, Maokai Cho'Gath, not too exciting. This camera angle, on the other hand, that's a spicy one.
This is compared to Maokai Cho'Gath, guys. This is it. This is living life.
Oh, can't show those important notes right there, Vedi.
The secret.
You need to stop doodling prior to a cast. Look, I appreciate your Captain Crunch drawing more than anyone else, but the world does not need to see it.
So moving back towards the game.
Yeah, I was about to say, you know, Jankos on Sejuani, it's very hard to help his mid laner on this pick in the early game, but top lane you can go for kills. I think it might just be one of those games where Jankos doesn't need to do too much early, and really it's just on Broxah to be proactive.
And Broxah has been the source of a lot of criticism recently. We know it's been weighing very heavily on him. Some of it was justified, but I feel like he has been taking it especially hard, and I want to see if he can keep the performance we saw in the third place game. Showed some very solid Gragas performances. Has been his go-to pick, as the Sejuani has been for Jankos. Both those guys getting their comfort picks, the picks that they've been playing the most, and now really going to have a chance to battle it out here to see who can get their laners ahead.
The thing to note, I guess, is that both team compositions, very much about team fighting. It's pretty much the meta right now. The only exception really is Longju over from the LCK, where they funnel a lot into side lanes, but here, it's very much going to be about scaling. We're going to have team fighting. If a team gets an early lead, it's going to be very similar to what we saw in Game 1, where they control a lot of the advantages because they're in a better position to fight sooner in the game, which means that they're actually going to be able to win out on the 5v5. But the key players that you really need to watch out for are number 1, Febiven on the Cassiopeia. Scales extremely well, went 5-0 yesterday. Does extremely well against the front line. And then the Sivir, the team fight menace. Just like we saw in the third place match, Rekkles nearly brought the game back using that Sivir. Get to the super late game, you have a lot of damage, especially in big team fights, and those two in the big fights are going to be the key factors.
And it's interesting in this meta too, with so many limited damage threats, how much pressure can go onto the AD carry and mid laner respectively. And last time we saw Rekkles on this pick, it was of course fighting from a massive deficit. But the key to H2K finding that lead was the Renekton on the top side of the map, combined with that Sejuani early on. I don't feel like you get the same kind of power coming out of the Maokai. You don't really have that avenue.
Pretty crazy Maokai, at least. You gotta be damn good in the laning phase to do that. And
full AP Lichbane Maokai.
It will, of course, be very focused on just pure farming on top side. Again, I still think you can actually shut down a Cho'Gath with Sejuani and Maokai together. It's a good combination for a lot of chains he's seeing. But it relies on the mid laner being even, so that you don't just get constantly counter ganked by a Syndra roaming and by a Gragas going to top side. And again, that's where you look at that top lane for a potential snowball. if you're H2K, you look at mid lane for Fnatic, as we highlighted before. We just need to see both junglers actually looking for ganks, or if they're just going to farm and place vision.
And I really just want to add a little bit onto your point, because you rightly said is about the Sejuani Maokai. What a lot of people don't respect is the surprising amount of burst that comes out from a Sejuani in the early game. You get that 4-hit passive, you proc the freeze, I think it's called, and then you just chunk them out. You have a lot of CC, you have a lot of early game damage. It's the great thing about these tanks in the early game that a lot of people don't appreciate. So it's definitely a place in which you can invest for any potential Sejuani aspiring pros at home.
And of course, we are potentially 30 seconds out from the game. Not potentially, we are 30 seconds out. Once again, not a major issue. Just had to remake the lobby.
I kind of panicked.
Picks and bans 100% completed. Teams are now loading onto the Rift. And we will be getting into game 2 in just a moment. In the meantime, folks, you saw the graphic already, but this is your chance, you know? You got a breath, you got 30 seconds. Head over to Twitter, vote. Let us know who you think is going to win. A lot of people think Fnatic right now. Maybe you H2K fans want to change that. It's your chance. This is your shot. Because right now, Fnatic have the edge. I don't think anybody wants to watch a 3-0 today. Hoping for the full 5 games.
The Fnatic fans probably want to watch a 3-0.
They want the Fnatic win. They might still want 5 games, though.
And let's remember, guys, winner of this best of 5 goes to Worlds. They will be competing in the World play-in stage against a lot of other talented teams, and I'm sure that both teams want to represent our region over in China.
Well, the fans are ready, so it is time. Ladies and gentlemen, game 2 once again. Vedius said it, 3rd seed from Europe is on the line. Right now it is Fnatic in the lead. Right now it is Fnatic with the edge, but H2K have the potential to fire back. We've answered a lot of questions already. We had a lot of discussion before the game started, but the thing from last game was still the bottom lane, and we said already, it feels like it might be safer for H2K this time around.
Well, grabbing the Xayah at least and not facing, you know, the Tristana-Alistar combo makes it a bit easier for Nuclear. Overall, though, we saw H2K yesterday get completely stomped in the first game against the Unicorns a lot. We thought, okay, they're done, you know, this is it. They're broken, they're never going to bounce back. That was it, you know. They actually bounced back really well in the second game and beat Unicorns a lot, and they need to do the same in this one here against Fnatic. They have that Cassiopeia that was so successful last time, and as long as Febiven can stay alive in the early game, then he will be a huge carry.
Febiven, of course, finding some good opportunities in game 1, but still not enough.
He's also running the cleanse. I like the respect. Not only due to the potential pressure coming out from Caps and Broxah in the early game, but also just the Morgana binding. There's so much chain CC from Fnatic where you have stun into binding, into knockup, silence, another knockup. Like, just running that cleanse to avoid the initial CC is great for a Cassio before she gets those levels and before she gets the movement speed from the passive.
Of course, Caps a little bit more locked into the laning phase this time around. Will be a lot more about Caps versus Febiven as opposed to Caps versus the rest of the map. You can see here how active he was in the early game, getting 2 kills for his team before 15 minutes.
Unfortunately, his lane did suffer a little bit by roaming around the map so much, and that was due to Febiven playing extremely well. He did exert a lot of pressure on the Orianna, and he was the player that we were keeping our eyes on in game 1 to potentially be the carry, to potentially turn the game back in the favor of H2K. But it was thanks to Caps making those good roams, snowballing topside, thanks to the pressure that they got at the bottom, that Fnatic were able to get such a great early lead.
So, mid lane though, very explosive in the start. Febiven getting a lot of damage onto Caps. Early level 2 for him to get a bit more poke, and then when Caps matches the level, well, Febiven says, I don't care, I'm just going to keep trading.
Just keep your eyes on the mana pool of Febiven too, because that's one of the risks that you run by just going so hard in the early game that you just very quickly burn out of mana. You do have the Corrupting Potion there to stock back up, but now we see a bit of investment in the top side.
Yeah, this was that potential gank we mentioned with the Maokai CC, follow up by the CC from a Sejuani to keep the Cho'Gath in place. It's happening.
Twisted advance to flash out immediately from sOAZ, but that's going to be the 4 stack. Freeze up as the knockup comes through. No follow-up, though. Can't afford to dive the tower.
Now there's the freeze up that you're talking about, Drakos. A lot of early burst damage coming out from the Sejuani and Maokai. They will force the flash from sOAZ, so a nice bit of pressure being exerted from H2K already. And Jankos is even able to get a bit of a steal onto the pros.
And now they have to just return gank within the next 5 minutes here with this flash being on cooldown from sOAZ. Potentially a little bit less than the 5 minutes, depending on his masteries. Broxah will have to just back away here. Bot lane as well, the double range from Fnatic have pushed in this lane here, but we see some good return fire from Nuclear.
And the key thing about this 2 versus 2 is that when H2K commit, Morgana doesn't really do much, especially if she misses the binding. It is a very long cooldown in the early levels, so the moment it is gone, H2K can really look to play as forward and look to trade as often as they would like.
Extending the trade, using the low cooldown of that Chomp to punish. And Trundle is still scary. If he gets into melee range, he is a massive threat in the early game, even without any items. So now the pressure on the top side, going in favor of Fnatic, but Broxah is nearby. He's ready. He smells Jankos coming. He wants to make a play.
Yeah, he needs to protect his top laner because sOAZ knew the lane was pushing towards Odoamne, but Caps with a very early roam to the bottom lane.
Exhaust has been burned. Caps on the way in. It may not be an Aurelion Soul, but the Syndra is here. That's the double stun, but the binding goes wide. So much invested, but not a lot gained.
Return gank now in the top lane from Jankos. No flash, remember.
Broxah sees this coming. Back ping coming out. sOAZ they need to burn through sOAZ immediately. Stun is going to go in. That's the permafrost. One more auto moving forward, and first blood for H2K.
A lot of things just went wrong there for Fnatic. Jankos will even force Broxah back here, but in the bottom lane, Jesiz and Caps, they gotta time that CC. You know, if Caps is confident he's gonna hit the stun, then Jesiz needs to hold the binding until he sees the stun land, then fire it to try and maybe get a kill. Top lane as well, Broxah stepped away after protecting sOAZ during the push, and then sOAZ had to stay, or felt like he needed to stay in the lane at least, and then suddenly he finds himself super overextended, and that top lane focus with the double CC working for H2K.
And Maokai, a pick we did not see in Europe for so long, now coming to prominence. It's not super powerful in terms of individual 1v1, but it has so much setup when you want to gank that top lane.
And Odo, one of the players that we wanted to keep our eyes on, could he have a good performance up against Fnatic? He played extremely well on the Jarvan yesterday and the Nart as well against the Unicorns of Love. And getting him off to a good start can really set him up for success. Now we see Chei roaming around the map a little bit, trying to set up a play in mid.
Miller comes in. Febiven going to take the opportunity to trade back and forth. Fantastic sidestep.
Febiven just going to get a bit of deep harassment down. Now there's actually a 2-man roam into the enemy jungle as well.
Yeah, a lot of things right now are going so well for H2K because by Broxah being topside and not even actually able to save sOAZ from dying to a return gank, it also means that in the mid lane, the Cassiopeia is not touched. No one is roaming in to deal with Febiven, so he's just winning the trades 1v1. Even Chei coming in to make it harder for Caps by setting up a nice little advantage for Febiven with some quick hits. And then suddenly, this Cassiopeia is just getting further and further ahead in terms of CS. You need Broxah to play around the Syndra lane, but he felt forced to go top to try and protect sOAZ. And then they didn't actually time the push with the Cho'Gath and the Gragas, so that when Broxah left, sOAZ was still in lane overextended and just died anyway.
It's an awkward spot to be. Last game when there was the massive CS deficit in the mid lane for Caps, he made up for it elsewhere. This time the play goes south, and suddenly Fnatic aren't quite as in control as they were in game 1.
And you've got to just look at the mentality shift of H2K. They realized that, okay, we had a bad game 1. We fell apart in the early game, but around that Baron, they did play well. They held the defense for a very long time against a very strong Fnatic. Now coming into game 2, they understood their early game plan, and they're executing it extremely well. Now the onus is on Fnatic to try and get something back in terms of the early game. They still have a lot of power in this middle lane with the level 6 Syndra and the level 5 Broxah. He's going for a bit of an invade. Now this could be risky, given that he doesn't really have that much pressure on the bottom side.
Well, Febiven is moving to top side, so they know that Caps can join in case a fight happens.
Now it's just a battle for the buff. You need a jungler with a level advantage, but Broxah taking a lot of poke back. Smite goes in. Broxah gonna get it. Jankos a little early there. Good patience comes in from Broxah. Small XP advantage to him.
But by Febiven going to top side, it actually forced sOAZ to walk away from tower. Give up a little bit of CS at the same time. Febiven once again.
Just relentless in how much pressure he's putting down onto Caps. Caps not coming out on top in these trades.
And the big thing about this matchup too is every time Febiven lands the Q, he gets the movement speed boost. Febiven's expecting the stun from Caps, so as long as he sidesteps it every time, he's going to just keep sticking onto Caps and forcing him out of this lane. Love the way Febiven is playing this. You have to play hyper aggro in order to win out on this matchup past the level 6 once Caps is a little bit more wave clear. But he also has information on where Broxah is, and that's also extremely important in asserting your dominance.
A little awkward there as he misses a couple CS, but he'll be able to focus back up and clean up the last few. And across the map, Fnatic not with quite as big of a lead as they once had. Now as we come into the mid game as level 6s, well, still early game, as we come towards the level 6 point, I think we have to be ready for a little bit more playmaking. Gragas now at the level 6, Jankos coming in as well.
But so far it's perfect for H2K. Febiven is winning his lane, Odoamne is winning his lane, they're not getting camped, they're not dying in the early game, they're actually just gonna move towards this mid-game stage where they can teamfight so effectively. Bot lane as well. Nuclear might be down a little bit against Rekkles, but he hasn't died yet. That's the key part.
The impressive thing to note about that graphic just there was the extremely low jungle proximity that Rekkles had in game 1, yet he was still able to get such impressive numbers. And that just comes back to the individual talent that we often talk about for Fnatic. They have really strong members, and when they are allowed to perform to their maximum level, you can see the outcomes.
And by allowed, we mean when those champions are not banned away, when they are given those favorable lane matchups. But the lane matchups aren't quite as favorable this time around.
Oh, and H2K are trying to respond with their own individual superstars, and especially Febiven and also Odoamne up in that top lane, winning their sides. And H2K now using Jankos, moving down to bot lane, force Rekkles and Jesiz back. And I feel bad for Broxah that he had to go top lane and babysit this Cho'Gath, and then they didn't actually push out the wave properly. And again, he still saw him die, because this was supposed to be a good early game for this Gragas, where he actually could go towards the mid lane and apply pressure, but instead it's been a game where Broxah's not been able to do anything at all.
Ooh. Cass with a quick flash out, knows that if that trade extends, he will go down. Forced to burn it early, sees Chei and Jankos coming as well. And really so much more pressure. Fnatic got to play pretty much pressure-free the entirety of game 1, but now that H2K come in on even footing, they're doing much better.
The difference between having a bot lane go 2-0 within the first 5 minutes versus going even. And you have to give a lot of credit to Jankos as well. His early pressure has been very effective so far in this early game, but now the game is slowing down, and both teams, or especially for H2K's side, they're more than happy to just continue this farm and continue this lane.
I mean, Febiven, he loves his life. He's even laughing on the player cams at the moment. He's had that perfect Cassiopeia start where he's almost getting all the CS he can possibly imagine, and then he's also sitting now with that Negatron cloak. He has the Catalyst, so he's actually very good against the Gragas and the Syndra combo, because they're both dealing magic damage to him. He's gonna get Abyssal Mask, and then suddenly that potential 1v2 can actually happen.
And we look at the coming team fights, it's all going to be on Rekkles to take out this Cassio, because I see 4 sources of magic damage. Yeah, Cho'Gath, a little bit of true damage there. Definitely have to be scared later in the game, but in the mid game, definitely be strong for the Cassio. For now, though, Fnatic pushing forward. TP going to be used in true.
For a moment, maybe Caps' ulti was just on cooldown still. It actually just is ready now, so they made the call to just step away and focus tower, but investing TPs as well. Odoamne is still on the bottom side to try and now return some damage to that bot lane tower.
sOAZ has already returned to the top side. Not a great spot for them to be. Luckily, Rekkles has enough wave clear to take this down.
So I think what Fnatic tried to do is just be preemptive on the play, because they realized that they're getting pushed in bot. Febiven has pressure on mid, and H2K are likely going to make that same play bot. So if they make it first and they force the TP out from Odo, then it slows H2K down from trying to take that first tower in the bottom lane.
Definitely a possibility, but now eyes on Caps. Febiven definitely far ahead. Flash forward on the Miasma. Chain CC, but the cleanse comes out. Petrifying Gaze, not quite in range. Nice scatter of the week comes in from Caps to save his own life. H2K commit a lot to the mid lane, but not going to get a whole lot in return.
Good thing that Broxah was there as well, because if he wasn't, Febiven would not have been afraid to dive that tower. But they do what they wanted. They force Caps back. They don't get the kill, but they should be able to get this tower.
sOAZ is here. Rupture can be used to clear the wave, and will be. For a bit more, Odoamne under the tower takes a lot of damage back. Waiting for Jesiz off to the side.
Morgana gang! Did nothing.
That's a good binding, man.
Scary ganks.
It's really scary at like level 2, but when there's so many tanks, man, it's underwhelming.
It's good use of the push though from H2K to get some damage on mid tower. Force summoners from Caps as well. sOAZ even taking some damage now.
Subjugate even used by Chei, making much less of a tank in that exchange, but you can see all MR go for the flash body slam.
But it does mean they can move now. That's the key thing. They push in the wave and they're kind of hovering around bottom side.
Jesiz takes so much damage. Fnatic is now on their way to the bottom side. Nuclear and Chei under pressure, but such a different...
Look at the mid, look at the mid. All right, let's not look at the mid. Let's not, sorry, I just saw both jungle and mid grouping up. Jankos was like, oh, I want to fight. Especially with Caps and Broxah's ulti unavailable. Could have been a good setup, but our observers are like, oh no.
They know best.
No, they do know best.
They know best, Vedius. You gotta trust. Okay.
Woo!
I thought for a second the blue buff was going to make it back to the camp and Caps was going to look like a fool, but well played, getting the double little wolves as well.
Most confusing day of the Wolves' life. Why are you here?
Thank you, Vedius. What is this wolf thinking now that he's all alone and being attacked relentlessly?
Probably just having a pretty sad day.
Happens pretty often.
You also got to look at the other wolf camp because Fnatic have gotten a lot of deep vision down on the top side of the map. They're very aware of Odo, or they want to allow sOAZ rather to be able to continue this push up on the top side. Caps and Broxah have been working a little bit more together in the last few minutes. They've been able to put a lot of pressure as they try to make their way bot to relieve some of the constant push that Nuclear and Chei have had in this early game.
Now, a bit more relief coming in for Febiven in the mid lane. Sadly for Caps, though, still no major item completed. Went for the early Sork shoes, has the Lost Chapter, pretty comfortable in the lane. It's going to be difficult for him to take on Febiven in the 1v1.
And now it's again Febiven pushing first, meaning it's him moving to the bottom lane. So it's H2K who secures the first tower as well. They're using that mid lane pressure really well in the game here, and the all-in from Fnatic earlier did not result in a kill. Once again, though, because we have these scaling tank comms, we don't have that much action early on, and it's how it's technically supposed to be, even though there are sometimes openings like this one.
Jankos is going to look to give it to you, but a flash out from Caps. It's just going to be the summoner spell. Giving up. You know, miasma laid down means Caps just makes it to freedom.
But now they're setting up to take this mid-tier 1. The flash is unavailable once again for Caps. Chei really good at punishing these low mobility mid lane mages, especially when their flash is unavailable. They're actually going to make their way back to the bottom lane. They started moving up mid, but they realized that there's a big push coming out from Fnatic, and they don't want to lose that tower just yet.
Chei and Nuclear still comfortable coming down. Still that slow laning phase you talked about. Tanks still scaling up. Cho'Gath, though, being given this free time to scale. Maybe not the best for H2K. Of course, they're still doing fine. But Maokai not going to have quite the same amount of damage as we move later into the game. Yeah,
it's tanks scaling, and then it's some of the openings where you could have maybe snowballed the lane not really being used, especially by Fnatic around mid. So this Cassiopeia is super strong at the moment. You can't really just shut her down effectively. She will go into the late game now and be a massive threat in fights. Instead, it's more about the bottom lane and see if they can get this bot lane tower down. There's also an Ocean Drake, which is super valuable in the early game. None of the teams put any priority on it. Jankos once again is around mid to just constantly force Fnatic to invest more members to try and defend here, because this tower is fairly low as well, and we gotta keep in mind that H2K already sitting with 2,000 gold lead. They secure a mid lane tier 1 tower with this winning Cassiopeia lane. Fnatic is suddenly really far behind.
Luckily, Syndra does manage to complete the Morellonomicon, comes back to the mid lane, can clear out the waves, but the tower is slowly but surely getting chipped down. Teams haven't been able to break through too many towers quite yet. Right now is H2K, about a 2K gold lead in their favor. Rift Herald, maybe the next, more than enough to take down Caps in that exchange.
Really good pillar there from Chei. No flash available on Caps. It was just like we were talking about earlier on. The ability of Trundle to punish these low mobility mid lane mages, and now they can transition up towards the Rift Herald. They don't have focus on Drake. It's not going to be another 4 Drake game like it was in game 1. H2K, they're all about taking down those towers.
It's a slow, steady game from H2K, but they have been in complete control. No one even on the bottom side, freeing up the rest of the map. They've been doing so well in the individual matchup.
And it all comes back to the early game from Jankos investing ganks into top. Just like you were saying, Deficio, the fact that Broxah felt like he had to go and babysit sOAZ meant that he couldn't really get that same level of early pressure in the middle lane.
Have to see as we look back at this replay.
There's really not a whole lot you can do when your AD carry is sitting bot and you have no flash yourself. Good setup from Chei and the rest of H2K to secure this tower. Slowly getting a bigger and bigger lead with this very strong teamfight comp. It will be the same kind of game as we saw with Fnatic, where now they're going to secure the outer turrets on H2K's side. They will then start playing around the Baron, kind of force Fnatic to play defense all the time. And if H2K do not make a major mistake, they should be able to just keep grinding and getting a bigger advantage. To start taking away jungle camps, to start looking for these picks, doing their little rotations between lanes because you have full vision. I like this move here from Fnatic though, to try and get something back on the top side.
On the hunt burn, but just going to bully Odoamne out. He does have the ultimate if he wants to try to zone off the tower, but he knows it will not be enough. Sivir and Cho'Gath, more than enough of a duo to focus it down, but now Riptide just going to get summoned on the bottom side. They're looking to fire back with a tower of their own, but no individual member is committing to this push. They know Fnatic is on the top side.
And they know Fnatic have a Cho'Gath, so they could actually rush a very early Baron. That's why all of H2K are reacting, saying, we gotta go up there. It's not to defend the tower or to defend the blue buff. It's literally because a Baron rush with Cho'Gath can always happen.
Well, it looks like Riptide is still going to get this down. Will drop it. And of course, getting the credit for summoning the Herald in the first place. That's yet another advantage for H2K. Now 3K gold lead in their favor. Setting up around that Baron, as mentioned. Of course, it is Fnatic with the Cho'Gath this time. Fnatic on the red side as well. So they're hoping to emulate H2K in the previous game.
I've got to keep track of this itemization too, because Febiven was one of the players that we wanted to keep track of throughout this game. Now he's completed the Morellonomicon. 21 minutes into the game, this Cassio is scaling very nicely, and Syndra is really yet to have any kind of early game impact. And that doesn't mean that Caps is going to fall behind. You still have a lot of damage on this mid lane champion, but it's so much harder to execute in these team fights because there's such a solid front line for the H2K carries to play behind.
It's difficult as H2K just continue to take out her towers for free. Fnatic looking to trade back what they can. Good news just continues to come in for H2K as Odoamne can hold his own in the lane matchup.
Keep your eye on Nuke. He's now playing the role of Rekkles as this side lane split pushing AD carry. He has a minion wave on this tier 2, and it's Fnatic that are forced to respond to the pressure.
Now moving up, let's see what they can do. Can they get the collapse? Chei is here as well. Rekkles all on his lonesome for now, but Broxah and Jesiz are there for backup. Battle of wave pressure. Both teams trying to split each other up. Fnatic hoping they can find the group fight, hoping they can stop H2K from moving across the map.
They hope H2K just mess up a Baron so badly that Fnatic can actually steal it away with the Gragas and the Cho'Gath. Because right now they push down in every single lane. They won't win the following team fight either if H2K just get the proper engage with the Sejuani and the Maokai. Febiven is insanely strong. He won't get one-shot by a Syndra combo. Xayah is the same. If you see the Syndra fully go towards you, you can use your ulti to dodge a lot of the damage, and suddenly Caps find himself in a situation where it's hard to actually utilize your burst. Because you don't really want to use it on Maokai or Sejuani if you can avoid it.
And this always feels bad, as when we see these Syndras fall behind, they can no longer blow up that single member with the ultimate.
And this game is just the perfect example of why most pro teams value the Cassiopeia above the Syndra, because if you do not play around the Syndra lane in this matchup, Syndra just becomes much weaker in the mid to late game compared to the Cassio. So in this case, H2K like, we are happy taking this matchup and just make sure Febiven doesn't die in the early game, and then we know we can win late game fights with a stronger mid laner.
Oh, and Fnatic setting up the Death Rush, hoping to bait Odoamne in, but a good bit of vision there. Gonna stop the play in its tracks. However, now, multiple members of H2K, they are clearing out the vision. Fnatic will see the wards drop even if they don't have vision of the members in the pit.
And remember, Fnatic were in this position in game 1. And what they did was they just kept forcing the Baron to try and bait H2K into fights. And H2K were never really falling for the ploy. They never hard committed. They were always just threatening the Baron, trying to steal it away, and then disengaging. And the reason why H2K were allowed to do that is because they had control over their half of the jungle, which, as you can see, H2K are right now denying from Fnatic.
They're trying to cut Rekkles off from the tier 2 tower as well, knowing that if they send enough members up, they're going to get it, and that is going to be the case. Slow and steady, H2K not taking the same maneuver around Baron Pit, much more comfortable just to take down the tier 2s, but with tier 2 starting to fall, they are running out of options. Eventually it will come down to baiting this Baron, to executing, to risking the potential steal from Cho'Gath.
But they can push so much deeper now because they kill all these towers. They can get full control in the jungle of Fnatic and stop sOAZ from ever getting close to actually stealing this Baron. Just turn and fight when you see him move in the jungle here near the Baron itself. They have plenty of engage with the Maokai Sejuani and even a Trundle pillar. Very good at just killing whatever's right in front of them with Cassiopeia Xayah. And so many tools to stop people from escaping. Miasma as well is fantastic against these tanks who wants to get out of the fight if they're about to die. Nope, you're not going anywhere if Febiven can actually get the W down.
And I think a good play from H2K right now could be for them to just push out these waves and then just either start the Baron to try and force the TP out from sOAZ, so that that's one less thing that they have to play around. And if they don't have to use their own TP, if they don't try and actually force a fight but just bait Fnatic in, then it's just the advantage that they have to make this Baron play that much easier for H2K to set up for.
Well, there's a chance we see Maokai once the bot lane is pushed all the way out, just walk to Baron. While sOAZ is stuck there with the minions, he needs to TP then, as you highlighted. You can even go to Baron like right now. If you are Odoamne, you just force the vision and the mid lane push. He's around mid lane to guarantee that. But it's that slow Baron dance they're all looking at, and then they're waiting for 1 or 2 openings to find a few hits on the enemy, and then they just push minions, start the Baron. That's constantly what you're kind of playing around. Odoamne is going to go bot now and do exactly that, push it out, and then walk to Baron. But sOAZ now, right now with the window, that's a way to kind of force Fnatic mid lane control and force H2K back a little bit.
Here we go, this is it.
Starting up.
But right now Fnatic should actually be able to react. They're not even seeing it
They don't have
yet.
vision. Yeah. Broxah's moving in. He has no idea. Someone could be waiting in the bush to kill him. Fnatic do see him coming, however, they immediately back off.
But the problem here for H2K is sOAZ had already left bot lane.
Exactly.
He literally walked like a minute ago and said, peace, I'm out. I'm just going to walk to Baron. So H2K needs to do this exact thing when sOAZ is already sitting bot.
But for now, they're just trying to take down the Cho'Gath. TP is coming in. sOAZ caught in the middle of the squad. Is going to use the Gargoyles don't play, but he's going to go down. That is the
Why
biggest
did he walk in
tool.
there? Why on earth did he walk back in towards the Baron pit when all of his teammates already walked away?
Now it's all on Broxah. So much pressure on him once again. Now he needs to secure from the other side. Can he be the member to leap over the walls to take this Baron down? Eyes on the Baron. 4K health getting lower. Febiven will have the miasma. Is he going to block the entrance? 2K. That's going to be burned down. He does get it! Broxah! That's the hero Fnatic needs, but now they have to face the fight. Febiven is moving forward, but the flashes are used, and they're going to walk away with the Baron. Guys, it's the exact opposite of game 1.
The Fnatic caps burst, combined with the smite from Broxah, the black shield on him as well. Fnatic played that steal wonderfully, taking that objective away and getting exactly what they needed to keep alive in this game.
Is this just what we're going to see every game? Red side just gets to steal a Baron at 20-odd minutes.
They will learn now. They will learn. They'll be like, next time when we 4v5, let's just jump out of the Baron pit and fight the guy standing behind right there. Odoamne is in a perfect position to force a team fight. His entire team can follow him, but instead they get the Baron so low, there's actually a chance for this to happen. It's a nice setup by Broxah and Caps, but it's all being basically allowed by H2K. They could have turned and fought way earlier in a 5 versus 4. Instead we get this happy face on screen.
Oh, the look of, oh, this is sad. We're losing this game to, hell yeah, I stole that Baron. Those are my favorite reactions.
But the big issue I have with this is Fnatic allowed H2K to do a very similar thing in game 1. And I thought that H2K would be like, oh, okay, all we need to do is, you know, we can play around division, we got a kill, we have so many options here. The only option we don't need to do is, let's go for a potential 50-50 smite. And fortunately for H2K, that was in fact the decision that they chose, and now they're going to have to pay for it.
And they're not strong enough to stop Fnatic from using this Baron buff. They're not finding the same picks that Fnatic found in game 1 to shut down H2K's Baron. But they're going to try now. Rekkles moving forward. Jankos is in a bit of trouble. Caps tries to get some damage in, but Odoamne from the backside, he's going to take him down. Subjugate will grab the kill in the end. That's one over to Chei. H2K going to stop this push for now.
That was a really good flash by Jankos just when the fight started, because Fnatic were trying to turn on him with the Cho'Gath, and then when he survived, all the cooldowns were spent on the Sejuani, and Cap suddenly found himself flanked by a Maokai, meaning H2K will stop the push, will also be able to pick up a Drake if they want a second one. Elder Drake actually will come fairly soon as well in this game. Sadly, it will be a fairly weak one.
Yeah, unfortunately for H2K, Fnatic got dealt the hand of triple Infernals in their game with the lead. They're not quite so fortunate.
To be fair, H2K did not go for any early Drake kills, so they didn't actually give themselves a chance to roll that Infernal Drake coming up next. I think the first Drake was killed around like the 20-minute mark, almost, with an Ocean Drake. So, if you don't take the chance and don't set yourself up for those Infernals, you get Ocean and Cloud Drakes.
But the thing
that's how the game works. Shame on you.
The thing is, I've actually heard a lot of pros saying that they see a lot of value in Ocean Drake during the early laning phase.
Oh, it's really good early on, yeah.
No investment early, but as you rightly identified, Deficio, very quick flash here from Jankos. He notices that thanks to a great pillar from Chei, Caps has been segregated from the rest of his team, and then Odoamne can come in from the flank, get the collapse down, they end up getting the kill onto Caps, and then your mid laner being dead now has a lot less damage on your side of the team.
Does get to push ult, so his damage numbers look pretty good, but may not be enough.
That's a
Odoamne,
fast tree.
one zoning on the front line. Takes a lot of damage there, burns the Righteous Glory as well. Luckily sidesteps the Morgana binding, so isn't going to be sent to his death. But H2K clearly hungry to punish here now. A little bit of a Baron buff left on Broxah, but should be fading away shortly.
So the biggest thing here for H2K losing that Baron is it is very difficult to siege onto the towers of Fnatic because they have a Cho'Gath, a Sivir, and a Syndra. So every time you get close to the tower, not only is your minion wave going to be instantly cleared out, but the pick potential is very strong.
Oh, Chei is just going to get taken down. No, is going to make it out. Subjugate makes him so tanky. Nuclear now firing back. Jesiz is in trouble. Clean cuts, not going to fire through any further. Featherstorm still up and available. Nuclear pushing in. They're hungry for this dive, you can tell, but the wave clear is still there, even with Broxah gone.
And I cannot believe that Chei survived that play. The Subjugate doing so much work for him, allowing H2K to even get a return kill onto Broxah. We were just talking about how difficult it is to siege, and now one of those big pick threats has been taken off the board for Fnatic.
And it was a good engage from Broxah, but just did not respect the turnaround potential. H2K now pushing pressure.
Look at the flank, Odoamne.
Eyes on Rekkles. He's going to be important for the damage, but Caps is crucial as well. Odoamne just trying to zone with that ultimate once again, and it does mean a tier 2 tower will drop in the favor of H2K. They extend their gold lead once again, now sitting on 5K.
And now with the last outer turret gone, they might have to wait for Baron to spawn once again. And then hopefully they've spent the time to discuss what went wrong. How do we change that for the next big play? Because Fnatic are sitting with that Sivir, who's getting a lot of items, and we gotta always mention that potential late game.
And this game's so very different. A lot less blood. 5-0 so far for H2K. Only one tower for Fnatic.
Ooh, Fnatic might actually give H2K an opening to fight beforehand. 3 members just in the mid lane. Rekkles' bot lane killing a tower. Sadly for H2K, they could not get the full engage, and also Febiven was not there. So a bit of gold for Fnatic now, but look at H2K here, looking towards that mid lane.
To push in, if they can break open the inhibitor line, the game gets a lot easier. But Rekkles approaching that terrifying point. 3 items plus the Ardent
No
Sensor.
minions yet.
Trying to tank this one down. This is a very confident play coming in from H2K. Stun off to the side. Chain CC onto Odoamne, not tanking the tower quite yet.
That is a big shield.
sOAZ moving in, silence and the knockup. It's a slow and steady fight. Tank moves in, could be in trouble. Odoamne will get taken down by Caps. That's going to be crucial for Fnatic, but the fight cannot continue. There is no follow-up engage.
I think that call though was actually smart by H2K to just try and rush down and see if they can kill the tower in time, but sadly for them the minion wave was just a little bit too slow. So all the hits that with 4 members were against the buffed up tower. And then the turnaround here, Odoamne most likely could have walked away, but by him actually re-engaging in to try and dodge some damage, suddenly Caps and Rekkles was in range to kill him. And that's now 25 seconds on this Maokai here. There's no deep wards he can TP to either. So Fnatic at least gets a chance to push out a few more waves, and we're sitting on almost 400 CS for Rekkles at the moment.
Oh, and this is the point. This is where H2K are going to have to be ready to out-execute.
So I just want to see if Odoamne can actually just walk away from this one. It's only 1 kill, but still it gives Fnatic at least some gold, because at this point here, everything is fine for him. He gets feasted, he's stunned up, and I think by him actually re-engaging in, he just puts himself in that situation where both carries can hit him.
Yeah, he actually puts himself in range of Caps' ulti, and I think if he'd kept warding, you are correct, Deficio, I think he would have lived.
Easy to say as an armchair analyst sitting here being like, you know.
He would have lived for at least another couple seconds. We don't know what next steps
Exactly,
Fnatic
and it's just 1 kill. It's just 1 kill.
Now on the hunt is used. Caps, though, all on his lonesome.
Bit of a wide ulti there.
Has the luxury of the Black Shield. The cleanse comes out, the knockout. Goodbye to Febiven. Crucial carry now eliminated. Odo's TPing in, but it's Fnatic with the momentum. Now comes the redemption. Just going to find the heals. Maokai looking for the disengage, but Fnatic are in control.
Bit of a sporadic fight that I think Febiven was not prepared for. They saw that Caps was out of position. They want to try and get a collapse, but the Jankos ultimate goes completely wide, and because he's on the side, Fnatic uses an opportunity to run down mid.
And let's be clear, Fnatic have a Cho'Gath. If they take this Baron, it is not a 50-50. It is heavily in their favor. Eyes on Jankos. Can he steal this one away? He's going to get knocked up. He's going to get silenced. Knocked away from the pit. They get the kill onto Morgana. They are going to get the Baron in the end for Fnatic, but can they take the fight? Odoamne is zoning Caps out beautifully. Rekkles fighting in the pit. Featherstorm comes out. Blade Caller not going to bring it back. Rekkles finally going to flash away. sOAZ debating. Odoamne may have pushed too far. Moving in, but no feast. Now Broxah is on the return. On the hunt, has been burned. Odoamne all on his lonesome, and Fnatic still walk away with the kill.
Yeah, that engage in mid lane was so important for Fnatic. Febiven got stunned up, didn't get to use his flash, and then suddenly they can go for that Baron. That was supposed to be H2K H2K. So H2K won that early game. They were setting up the entire map and got all the outer turrets down. Lost that first Baron. Now they lose a fight in mid and lose the second Baron as well. Even Fnatic got a bit surprised about the damage from Rekkles, so they flashed out of the pit when they were actually winning. Because look at this engage here. So this is 4v5. Jesiz dies very early. sOAZ will then feast the Baron. And now I understand why Fnatic are like, just run, just get out. We just want to keep the Baron buff. But the crits coming in just here from the Sivir ends up dealing so much damage onto H2K that I think if Rekkles just stayed, he might have just killed all of them. But obviously, for him, he's just trying to play it super safe.
And the thing is, for Odo, he didn't even recognize how low his AD carry got. So once he commits to trying to force sOAZ to flash out, he then realizes, the rest of my team just got chunked out.
There's always that severe win condition. If you're too slow in these games and you don't have the tools to then completely shut her down, these kind of things can always happen. And it is Rekkles playing with now 4.5 items.
And H2K have been here before. They have had advantages up against Rekkles' Sivir where they have tried to close the game, and it has been so difficult for the team, but now they're looking to start a fight on their terms. Odoamne with the Righteous Glory, debating whether or not it's the right choice. Will use the ultimate. Chei running forward on the front lines. As long as that Subjugate is up, he is a lethal threat. But it's just a trade of cooldowns.
A lot of ultimates are used.
If they can take Rekkles down, that's a massive shield. He's still ripping through the Moonbeam. Oh, Rekkles is still alive. Nuclear getting lower and lower. Righteous Glory used. The silence comes in. Odoamne is in trouble, and he's going to get taken out.
And Caps was the real MVP of that fight. Such a fantastic stun to stop the re-engage from H2K. Fnatic with the Baron buff and 5 members are going to break into the base of H2K.
Pushing forward, they are going to be able to break through the inhibitor. Will they push for more? 40 seconds on Odoamne, 26 on Jankos. Fnatic finally find themselves with advantage.
sOAZ can TP in, full HP on a minion. They have this AD carry, they can just burst through the towers. They're going for the finish.
No hesitation, one tower is going to drop. Nuclear needs to survive, but Broxah with the aggressive engage. Featherstorm comes out, Blade Caller not going to be enough because sOAZ is here for a meal, but it's going to be Rekkles ripping through the towers. It's going to be Fnatic finding a way to turn it around, and while sOAZ goes for the cheeky 1v1, the team is just looking to end the game. Fnatic will move up 2-0 in their series versus H2K.
Great comeback from Fnatic and a horrible loss for H2K. They were already down 1-0. They were winning the early game. They did so many things correct. But when it came to the Baron, even in a 4v5 situation, they managed to allow Broxah in that Baron pit, lost the Baron itself, and then after that, lost some of those small following fights, and then suddenly you lose the game. Down 2-0 now. And they had everything going for them to just even it out and be 1-1 at the moment.
And this was the fear. H2K, the mid to late game. We thought they were so in control for so long. They were playing the slow, clean macro game we like to see.
They were in control. It was their game. It was their game to lose. And then just one Baron steal suddenly gave Fnatic a breath of fresh air. And they're like, we can come back into this. We know we have the 3-item Sivir.
Even then, I still feel like H2K was in control. It's that one moment where they all in on Febiven, where they commit everything, where Febiven is appropriately reminded how Cleanse is not effective against knockups. And they managed to cut through him, and Caps, a guy who had been put down for the entire series, pushes that skill button at the exact right moment to bring home a Baron for the team.
It's a tough loss for H2K when they were supposed to win here. Now they have to reset and regroup for the third game.
It's going to take a reverse sweep. Well, Fnatic managed to take the win after falling behind early. Let's leave it to the analyst desk to break down game 2.
Thank you very much, Drakos. Absolutely awful, really, for H2K. After starting out so good, because you guys were saying, wow, we love this draft from Prolly. Prolly really has his head in the game for game 2. Maybe the Maokai would have liked to see it change up, but overall, H2K came in with a fantastic game plan and a great early game, Yamato.
I was a bit shocked at first, or not shocked, I was kind of hoping that Odoamne would be put on a carry, but in the end it worked out camping top anyway with this tank Maokai. But in general, the thing that stood out the most to me was the Trundle. I think it denied the Cho'Gath, and on top of that, into the Sivir is also very, very good matchup-wise. The thing with Sivir, sure, she's good into some specific AD carries, but a lot of supports counter Sivir very hard, and Alistar and Trundle are two of those.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The draft definitely went into the H2K side. I thought H2K is going to win this game for sure. In the early game, Jankos did some great moves onto sOAZ. They were able to get a lead on the top lane, and I mean, they just had to close out the game correctly. Like, just the Baron dance. I don't know who is the shot caller of H2K, but there's a massive issue here. Like, it's not hard. Like, you push out mid lane, you push out top lane, you go into the enemy jungle, you put in the deep wards, you clear the enemy pings, and then you wait. But they always just go for the 50-50 Nash, Fnatic steals it, and then Rekkles has time to get 6 items and just kills everyone.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at it because this is where the game turns. And of course, you're against the Cho this time around, so that'll be risky.
Well, it's absolutely crazy that we're always in this situation where one team is like invited to the cinema, they don't even have tickets, you know, they're just standing there. When H2K should be the team pushing the mid lane turret, the waves in. Look at the waves, the waves are completely neglected. You need to push in all the way, control the top squadron, and then all of a sudden you are in the situation when enemy team has to face check every bush. And then it gets scary, but they just walk in, you know, no guard, cinema for free, no ticket, get in there, you know?
Get free in the cinema. And at the beginning of the draft, I'm going to give you credit. You said, well, this is a great draft by H2K. However, not to sound like a broken record, Rekkles, if it's 50 minutes and he's on the Sivir, that's the only way. That is their win condition completely. And when this Baron got stolen, you said, this is it, Cho'Gath. This is going to 50, and this is probably going to Fnatic.
I mean, Sivir is a champion that doesn't spike that hard in mid game because you build Essence Reaver and like you don't go IE instantly. And Essence Reaver is an item that really spikes hard when you have your 5th, 6th item. And especially when the player is Rekkles, 6 item Sivir with a Morgana on your side, he's absolutely going to crush everyone.
Yeah, 100% kill participation for Rekkles, also doing work in the next replay because after they sold that Baron, Fnatic, they didn't let up. They knew that they had the upper hand. And, you know, everyone's doing well here. Caps just decimates Febiven, and it's over straight from the start.
Absolutely crazy. I think the mistake from the start was that H2K tried to contest River, and then they got caught off guard by, of course, the Cho'Gath Q. And if you're in a position with Cassio that you get caught by the Cho'Gath Q, then you're doing something wrong. And that's also the difficulty of Cassio. Very short range, you need to be very patient with your play at all times.
And there we go, they're gonna just finish it off, they're gonna turn.
Yeah, with Cho'Gath, that's a nice luxury you have with Cho'Gath. You always have the free Nash because of your feast. And yeah, they get the Nash, and now it's really interesting. Rekkles stays in a pit, yes, flash. He doesn't instantly flash out. Look at this damage now.
I should have stayed. Oh.
Yeah, but he still destroyed everyone.
He was almost in Sweden.
Yeah.
Almost in Sweden, but he's gonna come back and do some damage. And in the end, Fnatic turned this one around. They turn around the entire game, and now it's that big question of momentum. And I want to talk about the junglers because they were so instrumental in this moment. You were saying before this moment, Broxah, I don't feel like he's there yet. I don't feel like he's in the game yet. I want to see him get to the game in Game 3. And then he steals it, and you just saw it all the way, that smile on his face, and you just feel that momentum turning, and quite the opposite for Jankos.
Yeah, that's super huge. Like, Broxah didn't have the greatest game. He got quite out-jungled in the early game. But then, I mean, you don't win the game in the early game, right? It matters when you have the 50-50 Nash, and Broxah stole it, so it's a huge confidence boost going into the next game.
Yamato, talk to me about Sir Jankos. Semi-final versus G2, Game 1. Trick steals his Baron. They never recovered.
Oof. I think hopefully he has learned from this one. I think Jankos, as a player, always... I've never seen him do the same mistake twice, at least in my time in Rocket, working with him. I think the main thing that he did, which was very good this game, was recognizing that bot lane is a boat, like it's Titanic, you know, you don't want to get on it at all. You just need to play around top side. Even though Odoamne was playing the Maokai, it worked out fine. They got a lot of pressure, Maokai got ahead, and Odoamne was very effective in the game. I want to see more of that, because that works for him.
We want to see more of that because you don't walk away from this with a feeling of like, oh, H2K was awful, their draft was awful, they played bad. No, not at all. But is this a case of Fnatic is just better today, or is this a case of some factors did not work out for them and they should be able to bring this back for H2K?
I think it's weird to say this, but Fnatic was quite lucky to win this game. In the sense where, like, I don't, how do I say this? Like, this was the chance of H2K to get back into the series, right? But now they gave this huge momentum away to Fnatic, and I think it's going to be 3-0 now. Like, the faces of H2K's players looked really crushed, so.
Right, yesterday after Game 1 versus Unicorns, they were laughing all around, right?
Yeah, and today it's different. Yeah,
it's very different. Well, we'll see. We hope we can get 5 games, but Fnatic are just 1 win away from a spot at Worlds as they prepare for match point versus H2K. We'll be back for that after the break.
Well, the fans are ready, so it is time, ladies and gentlemen. Game 2 once again. Back ping coming out. sOAZ they need to burn through sOAZ immediately. Stun is going to go in. That's the permafrost. One more auto moving forward, and first blood, Miasma. Is he going to block the entrance? 2K, that's going to be burned down. He does get it! Broxah! That's the hero Fnatic needs, but now they have to face the fight.
Nice, guys. Nice.
Good job. Just like scrims, guys.
sOAZ is here for a meal, but it's going to be Rekkles ripping through the towers. It's going to be Fnatic finding a way to turn it around. And while sOAZ goes for the cheeky 1v1, the team is just looking to end the game. Fnatic will move up 2-0 in their series versus H2K.